Welcome to Jamie TV, thank you for tuning in. If you watch this channel you will know that I love drum machines and I love drum software, and you'll also know that whilst I love iOS music, I'm not doing many demos on iOS software at the moment. So if I'm doing one, then something very special must have caught my eye, and that special thing comes from Audiothing. It's SR-88, which is an emulation of the Soundmaster Memory Rhythm SR-88, which is a very rare and very cool 80s drum machine. Not a particularly sophisticated drum machine, but very cool nevertheless. So let's have a pissy pants around with it. The first thing you'll notice about SR-88 in standalone mode is that it doesn't quite fit on the screen. This is not an issue though, because it scrolls like this. This will also work in your chosen digital audio workstation, but if we go here we can switch between zoom and scroll. Personally, I prefer to see the whole app on the screen. We can stop and play here. If we go up to the preset window and select a different one, this will drop us a new pattern into the sequencer here and change the drum synth parameters. But if we go down to the pattern window, we can select a new sequence without any of the drum synth parameters changing. In this menu, we can also ask for a random pattern to be generated. We can solo a lane of the sequencer, mute a lane. Over here I can use these buttons to clear a lane. And there's a random button for each drum. If I press this button, the app will randomize the sequence for that individual instrument with every pass. Going back to the pattern menu, I can copy any lane and paste it to another. Here we can change tempo, where we have triplet feels as well as straight. If you press and hold at the top of the sequencer, you can drag and change the length of a sequence, meaning you can create various time signatures. A 5/4 groove, for instance. Also, if you press and hold, you can kind of paint events into the sequencer. Up here, I can also randomize the drum synth parameters. If I don't want to accidentally click that and ruin my own settings, I can go here and lock all parameters. And unlock them here. Or I can press this padlock up here, select which parameters should be fixed, and just randomize everything else. Also, in this menu up here, we can change the brightness and contrast of the app, which is a nice touch. These 5 strips that remind me of old Soundmaster mixing desks are of course your 5 instruments. Let's whack the volume down for these 4. We can pan this kick around. I'll just have a play with the pitch and decay. Now it may seem like you don't have a ton of control over each instrument, but when the decay and pitch are used in conjunction with these global effects, you can get a vast array of cool sounds out of this thing. When you've arrived at the sound you like, save your preset up here. And down here you can export your MIDI pattern to wherever you want to put it in your file system. In Cubasis 3, I've added SR-88 to a MIDI track. Now let's click on it and I'll disable the sequencer. Otherwise, the app won't respond to any MIDI coming from the DAW. Now, if I go to my Files app, slide over, open Cubasis 3, and find the drum MIDI I exported, I can drop it into my project. If I wanted to just build a sequence on the timeline in Cubasis 3, I could go up here in Settings where I can check which note in the piano roll will play each drum. And I can change those here too. If I already have some MIDI and I want to map the drums to that MIDI, because that's probably easier than adjusting it the other way around. What I like to do with this app is open multiple instances of it and use one for kick, one for snare, etc. That way I can apply the global parameters to each individual drum, and then I can, for example, add a massive reverb to the snare but not the kick, and process each one individually. For those of you who like to jam, we can start and stop the SR-88 sequencer with an external controller. In Settings you'll see the notes you can use for start and stop, which can be changed. Activate start and stop with keys and save. Currently my Sonido tempo pad is on octave 3. So I'll take it up an octave, and now each time I press stop, the pattern goes back to the beginning of the sequence, but we can change that. Or we can set it so that the sequence will only play while I hold down note C. I forgot to mention in my tutorial that when you're in zoom mode, if you tap on the screen, it zooms in. It's probably pretty obvious really, but I should have mentioned it. Just buy it and try it. It works really well. Now, if you're still watching at this point, I presume you really like the sound of the SR-88, because when it comes to this app, nothing else really matters because it's as cheap as chips and it's brilliantly well coded. I tried to break it, I tried to get it to screw up, but I couldn't. I thought I'd succeeded at one point. I was in AUM, I was starting and stopping SR-88 with a controller, and when I started it again, it wasn't returning to the beginning of the bar, which is how I had it set. Then I realised I'd pressed play in AUM. The transport was moving, so SR-88 was actually doing a brilliant job of jumping into the position in the bar that it should be in when I press play. So I have failed as a YouTuber. because, you know, as a YouTuber, you have to have something to moan about. It would be nice if it had multibus out, but it uses so little CPU. Just open multiple instances of it. It's fine. Now, the way I think I would use this app is probably in conjunction with another drum machine, something with more typical sounds, and use the SR-88 to introduce some analog goodness. If you've been watching my channel recently, you'll have noticed that I'm a bit of a drum machine nut. Hardware, software, iOS desktop, I just love talking drum machines. So I'd love to hear from you. What are your favourites? And is there anything that is not currently well represented by some software? I just like talking drum machines. So until my next video, I hope this video was helpful, by the way. Until my next video, take care of yourselves, be kind and be good people, look after the planet, look after each other, make lots of music, play lots of video games, and try not to piss pants about. I'll see you later.